Sedulous is an amazing hard demon that took over 3.5 years to build from start to finish, taking place right after Blast Furnace was finished, the previous Samifying demon level that was popular back in late 2.0. Samifying streamed the whole creation of this level, dedicating the level to his viewers, which is evident looking into some of the structures as they bear the names of the active people in his chat, and obviously there's a long dedication screen that comes with a hardcore mode with a coin awarded if the names are avoided, and this can actually kill you, which is pretty evil. The level received a lot of praise for its high effort and complex designs, with over 1,000 people watching the verification stream in the end, which was an amazing moment to watch unfold. However, as with every big verification project or large scale level, this level has also been slated by various critics in the community for reasons such as contrast and consistency, which I'll cover my thoughts on in this video. I've teamed up with AeonAir to bring out this video, which is pretty awesome considering he's a veteran of the game and he's great at picking apart gameplay and being able to pinpoint issues in that respect. He's also recorded the footage I'm using in this video, so go check him out if you haven't already.
This level has a lot of minute details to the gameplay to make it flow and work like it does, so there's a lot to cover. The pre-drop in Sedulous is difficult. That's almost the only thing I have to say about it. It is very clear that this is the oldest part, and in turn it is also quite dated, even when you look at the gameplay. Not that the gameplay is inherently bad, honestly, quite the contrary. It's just that Samifying's gameplay style and dynamic has evolved so much over the years that it feels kinda out of place. There are lots of rough timings, such as the black orb in the ship, which I would say is arguably the single tightest timing in the whole level, and following this black orb you need to quickly release your click after entering the gravity portal, so you don't end up jumping as the cube, dying in the process. This is just a minor issue overall, that is in my opinion very apparent in Sammy's early works, where it flows very nicely, but there are small, tiny oversights in the gameplay that create inconsistencies such as that one. Take 16% for instance. You should be able to click and hold there, but I had on multiple occasions just died because I jumped too early, making my cube hit the spikes after the first green orb because of the momentum, because my muscle memory did not match Sammy's muscle memory. This issue does get better with time as the level progresses, but I wish there was a slight revisit to the pre-drop prior to releasing the level just to fix minor inconsistencies like these.
As Aeon said, you can tell by looking at the level as a whole that the intro is more dated than the rest of the level, which honestly follows the level's goals in my opinion, and I think it works quite nicely with the context of the level that the earlier parts are of a lower quality. I think Sammy has been able to capitalize on this difference here by tuning the visuals to how the song sounds, as the level feels more sinister as the song is building up, and because the drop section is so bright, it does feel like a release of energy, which brings out the emotion he put into the designs and the decoration. The beginning is undoubtedly darker than the rest of the level, but to make sure it doesn't stray too far away from the feeling this level gives elsewhere, there are large decorated overlays that cover up the gloomy spots of the level that frequently move up and down since the gameplay is so non-linear. This adds a mechanical vibe to the beginning that is matched in the core style block design and the sharp movements and rotations. Sammy has been able to incorporate them into the transitions that slice this part up and make it more interesting, with some nice pulsing synchronization too. This technique isn't done as successfully in the drop of this level though, since the black gradient blocks move very quickly, in contrary to the flowy movement of the player. Although the very bright objects in the beginning contrast immensely to the dark areas, I'm mostly a fan of the intro to the level, as I think it makes a nice bridge into light from the darkness, and the glow usage is very tasteful, with different opacities and hues to emphasize different details.
Alright, so over to the drop. I absolutely love the drop in this level, both visually and the way it plays. There really aren't any issues with the gameplay up until like 37%, and this is where the first of very many blind transitions appear. You are supposed to hold the button and jump into a UFO timing, however, this timing is entirely blind. And when trying to repeat this level for footage, I found myself dying to 37 a little bit more times than I would like to admit. It's incredibly unintuitive and adds frustration to a non-frustrating level, which just adds a little tiny bit of mold to an otherwise perfect loaf of bread. Past this part, there are very few icky spots and it overall flows really well and it's really intuitive. As mentioned, there are really only singular yucky spots in the level that annoys me and others while playing, since the level strongly relies on you memorizing the full level. There is only a single orb between 37 and 67% that I personally found to be quite frustrating, and it's the green orb at 44%. It might have been me being a filthy 280Hz plebeian, but I found myself having to hit this orb incredibly late. If not, I would always hit the spikes, not reaching up to the red orb. Having to hit these 4 orbs very off-sync just to time it differently due to poorly placed spikes is infuriating, and it shouldn't be the case. Almost every single orb in this level you can buffer, so having this sequence of 4 orbs be like this does not really do it for me personally, especially because these orbs come at you really quickly without much of a notice.
Looking at Sedulous as a whole, I love the variety of designs in each part, and I think they fit very well together. For example, in the beginning, the designs seem to be cyber-styled and mechanical, then when the drop kicks in, the level takes a more elegant turn with curved details and such. At this point, it's refreshing to see more solid designs that have more to them than stacked blending and straight lines, and I think that Sami has done a good job mixing these designs together and creating depth between blocks and ground spikes. As a general rule of thumb, a level with high structure coverage requires a lot of decoration or variety in order to be successful, which I think Sami has smashed out of the park with this, since the designs are vast and intricate, alongside moving parts such as the scaled up saws that rotate in time with the music. There's hardly any space left bare. The colours are also divine here. The range of brightness gives the designs brilliant depth while also contrasting to the background shapes, although I can't help but feel that in the opening of the drop, the glow on the left side amplifies the blending colours a little bit too much, which washes out the colours and turns the level to white. Although this makes for a nice juxtaposition to the intro, I think this idea could instead have contributed to the progression instead, so that the level gets brighter and brighter, because after this part the colours become more saturated, but this is just a tiny nitpick and it shows how different creators think differently about how the levels go on.
Over to the second portion of the level. This part feels odd to me in many ways in regards to the gameplay, as it simultaneously manages to be the hardest and the easiest part of the level all at the same time. 55% all the way to 59% is quite literally a singular click and hold, then 3 more early timings that require virtually no skill at all, creating for a quick break in the level. While it is a break and it's an easy part to play, 55 to 59 also flows in a funky way that makes for a visually really cool part. One issue I do have with the flow of this part, however, is the green orb and the green dash orb at the very end before getting to 63%. There isn't really anything bad about it necessarily, it's just that because you can preemptively hit the orb, it makes it feel very uneven and everything you do falls off center, making it look very odd. The movement of your ball as you hit the orb just doesn't match up with the curvature of the structures around you in this small transition, which in my opinion just takes away from the immersion of the level itself. Now, the next part I have a couple issues with, primarily with a gargantuan difficulty spike that suddenly appears out of nowhere. After the wave at 66%, you fall down into a terrible transition, leading to multiple timed UFO jumps that are all very tight. The transition not having any visibility whatsoever and you not regaining your full view of the part that you are playing until the very last click of the UFO is just annoying, and I found myself dying to this a lot when trying to practice the level for myself. You do get a feel for it as it's very well synced to the music, but it's just very easy to prematurely click in this part.
I would like to say before I get into the climax of the level that I love the transitions out of the first part of the drop. I think the robot jumps at 48% sync very well and allow for some awesome pulsing sync as the level temporarily grows dark, and this style of transition is mirrored at 54% with some cool looking backgrounds to fill the empty space. Following this, the song goes wild, and it's noticeable that the backgrounds capitalize on this change since they move so much more erratically, bouncing up and down, while also moving towards the player at varied speeds. This, paired with the vast movements in the blocks and the fast, effective transitions, really make you feel like you're flying through the level, and this works very well as the climax of the level. As Aeon said, there are a couple of parts where the player goes off sync with the shapes of the blocks, which is very important to avoid with curved ground spikes, because they often lead to areas that are difficult to decorate and cover properly. This is redeemed slightly due to how varied Sami's structure shapes and designs are, but it still feels a little bit off between 56 and 63%. The mini transition at 63% is so visually appealing to me. I really love how quickly the level is shut into darkness to place full focus on the sweeping beams across the screen, but then as the level comes in, there's a few oversights in the design that take away from the level visually. At 65%, there's an assortment of pulses that look good with a splash of colour, but not with straight white, because then going up as the wave, you can see an unaffected portion of a structure to the right, which is something that I can't unsee. But don't get me wrong, the colourful pulses look splendid here and do the flashing lights a big favour in my opinion as the part goes on.
Then we get to the infamous 69% click in Sedulous. My only complaint about this isn't the fact that it's unbalanced relative to the rest of the level, but it's the fact that the gameplay itself gives off a very different feel to it. Every other click in this level requires no strain to your hand whatsoever, and it's overall very smooth and very comfortable to do. Then this 3-click ball segment comes in out of nowhere and puts a very weird strain on your hand to 3 fast clicks right after a click and hold, which creates for an uncomfortable playing experience, and it's a major choke point of the level. Then transitioning into the next part, I don't really have much to say though. I do wish that in the 2 blue orbs right before the hold in the ship, I wish there was a little bit more leeway with the timings of the orbs. On lower hertz especially, these can become rather frustrating as you have virtually no time at all to buffer the first click, and it has to be instantaneous. Even on higher refresh rates, I found this to be somewhat of a butt clincher, just because even if I as much as slightly mistimed my first click, I would end up dead in something that is supposed to be an auto part.
Obviously, I have to talk about the time warp effect right here, which has so many layers to it, and it fits right in with the elegant decoration surrounding it. But what is interesting about it for me is the fact that it acts like a time machine and seems to pay homage to the sunset or industrial art period of Geometry Dash creating by imposing black, fragmented looking structures for a brief moment before entering the bright transition back into the swing of things. This tunnel ship section is extremely bright and could probably do with having the glow opacities tweaked slightly, or the whole part could be paired with another visual effect to tie the level together a bit more, because it doesn't 100% fit the way the song sounds here, and I feel like there's a small bit of missed potential in this transition, although the movements do pick up again very noticeably once this part ends.
Entering the wave, I find this part kinda deceptive in very many ways. It looks a lot more open than it really is, and looking at the gap, it's more reminiscent of a higher end hard demon or even an insane demon for how tight it really is. And I've seen loads of people, especially less skilled players, die to 74%, and most people die multiple times as well. I don't necessarily think it should be easier. I do, however, think it should be more clear how tight the space really is. I appreciate the effort made to make the path open up visually, but from strictly a gameplay perspective, it's deceptively hard and I don't really like it that much. Then right after, it throws you into a blind transition with 2 timed UFO jumps, similar to the previous blind UFO transitions. However, this one is slightly more forgiving, thankfully. Last part, there isn't much to add. The first 2 black orbs are incredibly forgiving, being super easy to hit with almost infinite room for error, and really the only way to mess them up is not clicking them at all. However, the blue orb afterwards is a different story, since you have to hold in the ship right before transitioning. You have to very swiftly release your ship hold, click again for a buffered blue orb, which I found to be quite frustrating.
The drop definitely ends on a good note, getting very saturated in colour, which is clear in the short dual wave transition, as the previous transitions in the level similar to that one were all much darker. As a whole, I feel like the level can be quite deceptively difficult, since there's a lot of opening movements that remain closed until you get really close to them, and also since the gameplay is very non-linear, I can imagine getting distracted by vast movements of both the visuals and the player moving up and down. No matter whether you personally like this level, I don't think anyone can deny that this level has a lot to offer, as it dabbles in both dark and energetic vibes in a convincing manner, since it's mostly well polished with well-rounded movements and pulses to suit the mood. This level is certainly progressive, although the ending is a small bit of a shame. I think it's appropriate for a level with so much dedication put into it for such a long time. There's a clear beginning, middle and end with insane attention to detail, which is why it stands out so much as a glowy design level, because honestly, it's more than that. To round off this video, I want to congratulate Samifying on finishing this massive body of work, and I also want to thank AeonAir once again for being on point with the review of the gameplay and recording the footage for this video. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching this thought on video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Check the links in the description, leave a like and subscribe, and have a good day.